Hi people, and hello my Chili Con Carnage crew, it's Chili here doing a special episode of Live Listener Race. This one is going to be a worst to best episode. We're talking about the one and only Limp Bizkit. I know, everyone's favourite man they love to hate within the metal scene, the band that really put new metal front stage and centre at the time. This is the big one, everyone. And this is a band that I love. Unironically, I still love them to this day. And I saw them, live only just recently. So I thought, well, why not just have a chance to discuss their albums from worst to best? Because, yeah, they have a very interesting catalogue. And I'm sure a lot of people have opinions on what is their best and what is their worst. So without further ado, let's get into this. Starting with the worst album.
Keeps going this way, I just might break your fucking face tonight. Give me some.
Kicking things off, we're going to be talking about Gold Cobra. This album, when I remember when it came out, what was it, 2011 I think? I just remember it coming out and thinking at the time, damn, Limp Bizkit is still doing albums. Yeah, this album to me was definitely one of the weakest ones that they had produced. It was the album that I never really got into. It was, at the time anyway, in 2011, I kind of had shunned Limp Bizkit to a degree. I didn't really listen to their music. I was getting more into much more heavier stuff. So, to think, oh, yeah, Limp Bizkit, that's a bygone era thing. I, kind of want to put them into the closet here and forget about them. It's kind of understandable. There were certainly, these songs that I just did not care about, and ones that when I look back and think about, I think, oh, that's kind of interesting for, the song Auto-Tunage, for example. I thought that was kind of an intriguing take on that whole era of music, because everyone was taking on auto-tune, and then Bizkit comes along, hey, we're going to write a song about auto-tune, but it's like, kind of, fuck you, whatever, and I just listened to this album, and I just could never get into it. Like, there's not really any awesome hooks, any great pieces here that stand out. Maybe Gold Cobra, the title track, but other than that, I just can't see anything on here. And this is certainly an album that I never revisit. Looking over the entire catalogue here, this is an album I just never revisit. It's 16 tracks, it's too long, which is common, of course, for Limp Bizkit when you're looking over things. But it's just a record that I just feel was a bit unnecessary, and one that I just do not enjoy it. What can I say? It feels like the album cover. All these people just kind of, and at the same time, I'm feeling that. That is me looking at this album. So yeah, Gold Cobra was definitely the one I'm pushing and going, nope, that's the bottom of the list. Bottom of the barrel, everyone, starting here. Up next is going to be The Unquestionable Truth, Part 1. So, the main question has to be, what happened to Part 2? Yeah, if you didn't know about this album's history, this was Limp Bizkit trying to copy what System of a Down did with Hypnotize, Mesmerize, which is a common theme within Limp Bizkit's catalogue, you'll find out. So, yeah, obviously, System of a Down had a massive hit with the Hypnotize and Mesmerize albums. That's simply because System of a Down were at their height, pretty much. Everyone was just getting in on that BYOB, and then within only a couple of short months, Hypnotize comes out, and you're like, oh my god, what? How is 2 albums coming out? So then Limp Bizkit kind of jumps in on this and goes, alright, we're doing an album. It's going to be The Unquestionable Truth. And every single track off the album is going to follow this theme. It's going to be The Propaganda, The Truth, The Priest, The Key, These songs, for the longest time, these songs felt like they sucked. I remember listening to this album and thinking, oh yeah, that's kind of cool, it's interesting. It's a very short album, of course, as you would come to expect. It's only 7 tracks, so we're talking about less than 30 minutes in duration. But I don't know if this is supposed to be... I still don't know if this is meant to be a concept album or not. And, given... we're talking about Limp Bizkit here, at the end of the day. As much as I love them, right? This is not a band you want to hear writing any kind of concept album. You have not got that in you. You are Limp Bizkit. That is not your field. Don't cover this subject, And I kind of feel like they kind of got themselves a little bit too serious here. The Propaganda is an interesting take. It's a good song. But at the end of the day, you're kind of like, man, you're a bit lighthearted. You got to be lighthearted. Don't be too serious. You guys are the frat boy party theme songs, you know? At the end of the day, Limp Bizkit was pretty much that icon right there. It's like saying Blink-182. They're just pretty much the imagery, I guess, of, you know, American Pie, for example. It's just synonymous to that type of realm. And yeah, look, it sucks to be typecast, but you're there for a kind of a reason at the end of it. And yeah, Fred Durst is not the lyricist that we all know he's not a good lyricist, but he is a person who knows how to hype up a crowd. And that is the main aspect about what Fred Durst can do. You know, he's not going to write these massively insightful tunes or cover these political spectrums that can be done so to anywhere near the levels of, say, Bob Dylan, not expecting him to do so. But when Limp Bizkit take the stage and Fred Durst is up front and centre, he's getting that crowd hyped. And we've seen it time and time again. We saw it, you know, all the way back with Woodstock 99. We saw it, of course, with Big Day Out when they took the stage. And again, another very infamous moment at a live concert they have. Pretty much every time they take the stage, Fred Durst is pumping that crowd up. That's his job. And he does it amazingly well. He does it so well, actually. So when it comes to the Unquestionable Truth, it was like, why are we getting serious and doing this kind of political bullshit with the priest and the propaganda and the truth and all this stuff? It just doesn't suit them. They're trying to be System of a Down. They're trying to emulate that kind of sound and style, and it didn't really work. It was completely flawed. I'm glad they just said, nope, we're putting a pin in this. We're going to stop. We understand we fucked up. Sorry. You know, let's not do that again. So for the longest of times, I consider this album like, I don't really care for it. And it wasn't until very recently I went back to listen to it and I went, you know what, it's got some riffs here that I really do enjoy. It's not actually as terrible as I remember. However, obviously it's been ranked as low as it was because there is other albums here that are much better and stuff that I more enjoy anyway. So yeah, look, it's not a terrible album. If you haven't listened to it, I'd say go ahead and listen to it. You know, the first 3 or 4 tracks are pretty cool. But other than that, meh. So up next is going to be New Old Songs, and I bet that is an album that a lot of people either forgot it existed or don't even know existed. And I couldn't blame you. This was a very unknown album, perhaps underwhelming. I mean, it's gotten ranked so low after all. But this is when Limp Bizkit tried to do what Linkin Park were doing with Reanimation. Again, copying, like I said, System of a Down from before. This is Limp Bizkit copying Linkin Park with Reanimation, just not doing as well as what Reanimation did. I mean, Reanimation, amazing album. And that is a lot to do, of course, with the DJs that they used and all the other guest musicians remixing their stuff. Not saying that the stuff they had here was abhorrent. I think there's just a lot of stuff here that is misplaced. Maybe that's the right word I'm trying to think of. Hell, even I just saw here Diddy's on the album. Yep, okay, that exists. So yeah, you got musicians such as Timbaland, the Neptunes, you know, Everlast, of course, and Exhibit being these guest musicians on here, or musicians that, of course, remix the album. And it's a little bit. It shows its age. I think that's the best way to put it. You know, these are musicians who were all doing remixes and stuff that was of that era. But I think when this was released, and I'm trying to remember, it was 2004 or something? 2001, there we go. You know, it was a little bit like, oh damn, this is feeling... It hasn't aged well. Let me put it that way. This album has not aged well. But I got this album back in 2001. I listened to it a lot. So it's like an album that is special to me, and there are certainly, you know, songs that I really do enjoy listening to again. But when I did revisit it, I'm like, oh damn, this just doesn't sound good. It sounds pretty abysmal in sections. You know, very of its era. It's aged like fine milk. That's pretty much how I can surmise. You know, it's an hour and 13. It's a bit too long. And there are certainly a lot of tracks here that have been remixed more than once. For example, My Way, I think, got remixed 5 times on this album. You got My Way P. Diddy remix. You've got My Way remixed by DJ Lethal. You've got My Way DJ Premier remix, the explicit version with DJ Premier. You got My Way Williams Orbit mix. And then My Way's Pistols Dancehall dub. Why? Did we really... If you bought the single back in the day, I'm pretty sure all of these songs were on there. So now you've just got a combination of other things here. This might have even been, actually, I'm not even sure about this, so correct me if I'm wrong. This might actually be all the B-sides remixes that were on singles just put all together in one album. Maybe that's the case, and they just added a few things here and there. But anyway, it exists. I don't mind it because I grew up listening to it. I know a lot of fans, now that you've remembered it, are probably going to rank this as the worst album, and I couldn't blame you, to be honest. But hey, nostalgia, what can I say? Up next is certainly going to be an album that's going to be controversial. But hey, it's my list, whatever. $3 Bill. Yep, so $3 Bill, y'all. This is where the band starts. The very first record, technically. You know, they did, of course, have that debut EP, Aqueducts. That was when the band was performing as Limp Bizkit, spelled Biscuit. That is the demo. That is the very demo that, you know, he gave to Jonathan Davis. That Fred Durst gave to Jonathan Davis, and then Jonathan from Korn was like, man, we got to sign this band. They're red hot. He got them on board as well, got them to perform for the band back when they were touring in Florida, and they opened for, I think, 2 or 3 nights. And then he sent out some record execs to get them signed, and then Ross Robinson comes in to produce this album. And that is why this album sounds amazing. Compare this to, say, a lot of nu metal bands and their debut records, they're very shit. You know, you go to, say, Deftones' first album, production is crap. You go to Mudvayne's first album, production is crap. You go to, I don't know, you could pick a lot of bands and their debut albums who were in the nu metal field, or at least at the beginning, and they're pure shit. But, you know, Korn is one of those bands who their debut album sounds like flawless and has aged so well. And that is because Ross Robinson also produced that album. So when Korn came in the mix and said, we got to get these guys involved, they of course said, well, we want this album to sound good, let's send that producer that we really love over to them. And then the production was $3 Bill, y'all. And yeah, look, this is an album that really shows the band. It's very rough, it's really raw, and you know, it kind of shows off in that album artwork that you can see here. It's this rough, raw sounding album compared to what we would see a little bit later on, a bit more polished, you know, down the tracks. But it's got the energy. It's got it's very, it's almost punkish, I guess you could say, with that introduction, for example, with Pollution, this just pure screamed and guttural sounding affair, and Counterfeit as well. Stuck and Nobody Loves Me, all these great songs here, you know, and I think it culminates, of course, with a controversial pick of Faith, this cover that was done. We're talking about the George Michael song, of course, and this is just showing what Limp Bizkit were about. It is by every means a terrible cover, but it's terrible on purpose. It's done to the band's style. Like, this is a well-known song, and we're going to abuse it. We're going to horrifically destroy it, but that is what it's all about. It's Limp Bizkit. This is Limp Bizkit. This is us. This is how we're going to do the cover. You know, this is our style. And at the end of the day, when bands originally started doing covers, that is what they were doing. That was the original message of what a cover was meant to be. It wasn't meant to be a one-for-one, like, you know, it wasn't meant to be a one-for-one replacement, because you're never going to find that way to match the existing. Or you take an older tune and that is lesser known, for example, and maybe bring it to the people's attention. You know, Faith is a great rendition, I feel, of the song. It is an interesting take, very different, and I think it works very well for Limp Bizkit. Less is said about the other covers they would do in the future, but whatever, we'll get to that point a bit later on. But yeah, you know, it's a great album. I think it's fantastic. It's just that it has a lot of tracks, and this is what holds it back for me. There's a lot of tracks that kind of, they exist. You know, when they did Aqueducts or something, that debut EP, you had like 4 songs. Now we're here, it's 13 tracks. 12, I guess, if you take away the introduction, right? But still, you got 12 tracks on here. 4 of them were already there. So we're talking about writing very quickly as well, because you got to capture on the, you know, fame that you're building, all these other tracks, which I'm sure many were already written up. But still, these are certainly tracks that aren't exactly huge for me, like Sour, Nobody Loves Me, which kind of like, you know, Nobody Loves Me, okay, cool, whatever. And a few other tracks here and there. But yeah, it never really resounded to me. And this, out of the original trilogy, I guess you could call it, this was the last album that I discovered. And I discovered it very late. So when I finally came around to listening to it, it was a bit out of place, I felt. And I should add a little note here. I am talking about actually the first 4 albums, I should say. So yeah, I'd been listening to, you know, those 3 albums, and then I got around to listening to $3 Bill, Y'all, and it's very different compared to what would be the next 3 albums. So yeah, you know, it was very odd. It kind of took me back. But yeah, it's much more primitive. $3 Bill, Y'all is a really good album. I really do enjoy listening to this from time to time. But again, you know, there's a fair few tracks I'd just be skipping. Stuff that I would give a miss to. It's a bit long. So that's why I feel it gets this spot at the end of the day. Yep, this next spot right here is going to be the most controversial pick off the list. But hey, results may vary. And yeah, I can hear all those keyboards just being pounded right now. You know, worst list ever. You suck. Blah, 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 blah. Hate on me as much as you will. This album, and there are reasons why I have it so high, this album, I grew up listening to it. So, back in the day when this was released, you know, even though... We'll get to Wes Borland in a minute, but when this album came out, I was heavily into Limp Bizkit at this stage. So, of course, results may vary drops, and I'm picking that stuff up. I'm just picking up, listening to it on loop, on repeat, and I'm loving it. I'm loving it because I am very much oblivious to anything that could be bad by them. I don't think of it any way that it could be bad. So, the thing is, when I'm listening to this album, most of the time that I was listening to this album, I should say, I was playing Midtown Madness, if anyone remembers that game, and you're racing cars up and down a highway or whatever, you know, and I'm just playing Results May Vary in the background there. So, it is an album synonymous to a memory. And I've said this before on my channel, but if you have an album that is tied to a positive memory in your life, it's going to be a very, very good thing for the album, you know, because it's a positive image kind of thing. It's positivity, it's nostalgia at the end of the day. And that is what this album is to me. It is pure nostalgia. I can recognize this is a shit album. I can absolutely recognize terrible songs within this. You know, it exists. But I have such rose-tinted glasses on that I can look past it and make it, I'm so oblivious to the shit that is on here, with exclusion to one track, of course. And yes, I don't think I need an introduction as to what track that is. What do you want me to say? It was a big misstep. It was probably the biggest misstep of his career almost. Aside from the fact that Wes Borland had, of course, left the band by this point. And I think that's where the divergence is. You know, when it comes to this album, it's a very different sounding affair compared to the last ones. Because Wes Borland is a massive part of Limp Bizkit. Hell, all the band members are. And that is a big factor when it comes to Limp Bizkit's sound, and I've said this all the time, and this is why I always defend them. Limp Bizkit have the best melody section, the best rhythm section of a lot of bands in the 90s era. You know, you have DJ Lethal adding his elements, of course, from House of Pain fame. Try and say that loud. You got Sam Rivers on there as well, and just adding his parts. John Otto. I mean, Sam Rivers. I mean, I just want to bounce back to him. Those bass lines are some of the most infectiously groovy bass lines that you can ever think of. At the end of the day, I think as far as bass players go in the 90s and the nu metal style, I think he's the best. And yeah, I'm putting him above like Chi Chang, for example, and others around that field, because his grooves are just so highly intoxicating. Like, just listen to some of the tracks that are gonna come up, and it's amazing. Like, his bass work stands out, but at the same time, he works so well with John Otto, and you know, his drum section, making the rhythm just so tight and crisp, and that what makes it work. Of course, then DJ Lethal throws his parts in there, and it all culminates with Wes Borland and those riffs. And of course, Fred Durst exists within the band. Look, I'm not going to say he's definitely not the best vocalist. Once again, I've already covered that. You know, he's definitely not the greatest vocalist. He's not a great rapper either, but he does his part, and he does it very well when it comes to a live setting. And I think that's all these guys. when they're back, when they're in a band and they're together, that is the main reason why Limp Bizkit works so well as a cohesive unit. However, one of the wheels comes off here, with results may vary. So yeah, you've got a stylistic change, and it does make itself pretty damn obvious. Like, you can tell Wes Borland's crazy and odd guitar work is not present, and it's very obvious. But still, at the same time, I like it. I will say Eat You Alive contains those terrible lyrics, but terrible lyrics are present and very much a big part of any kind of Limp Bizkit album. So, yeah, look, I mean, when you're going over it, Eat You Alive, I love that hook, that massive one, Back to the Barricade, was it? But basically, I think it's the first 7 tracks, excluding Re-Entry, which is funny though, are just great. Build a Bridge, Almost Over, Down Another Day. I think there's these great light-hearted parts. Red Light, Green Light is a bit, it's odd because, I don't know, Snoop Dogg, I don't think he flows well on there. Because like Red Light, Green Light, I don't know about the flow there. Snoop Dogg had been a guest rapper doing what Snoop Dogg does, and Fred Durst. I don't know, the flow just doesn't work off that track. I don't like it. People apparently did. But yeah, no, there's other tracks as well which I thought towards the end of the album weren't too bad. Yeah, it's a long album. It probably is way too long actually. Head for the Barricade, that was the track I was thinking of. I thought Head to the Barricade was cool, just for its simplistic riffs. Like, yeah, okay, it's a crappy, it's a simplistic song, but it's a good hook for a simplistic song. Phenomenon, not bad. Lay Me Down. All these tracks. Creamer, Radio's Dead. I like that one actually, but very odd bass line on that one. And I don't know about that, take me back to yesterday, rolling dice and getting high. Whoa, you kind of, I'm being taken away from the song when he does that part. If you took that section out, I think that track would work really well. And I don't know, maybe if they just play around with it. I think Results May Vary probably it suffers a lot of flaws and issues. Obviously, the Wes Borland angle, maybe it was pushed out a little bit before it should have been. They didn't want to put their foot off the gas. They're talking about 2003. Nu metal is kind of starting to die. I think the record execs knew this, and they were like putting pressure on the band, saying you got to release something ASAP. I don't give a shit how your band, what mental state they're in, which wasn't a good state as well, by the way. But obviously the results were known to all of us in hindsight. Still, this is an album that I listened to a lot of when I was young, and an album that I enjoy. It's pure nostalgia chub for me, and that's why I gave it a high rating. So we're going to hit up the top 3 here, and number 3 is going to be Still Sucks. Oh my gosh, this album right here, absolutely amazing comeback record by Limp Bizkit. And I think it boils down to a lot of things that just went right for the band. We're talking about an album that is cohesive. It's rather short compared to their other efforts. It's only 32 minutes long. But they kind of just said, nah, fuck it, we'll just work on these songs that are obviously working out for us, and we'll just put it out there. The other thing as well I found, which was very interesting at the time, was Papa Roach were releasing an album just about this time as well. And I remember because Papa Roach were like, oh, we're punk, we're awesome. And that was exactly what I'm quoting. He said, yeah, we're punk, we're the best, we're one of the most punk things ever. But you've released like 6 or 7 singles off that new album, Ego Trip, which is horrendous. One of the worst albums of 2021. Then Limp Bizkit turns around and they're like, hey guys, how do you want us to release this record? Out to the fan base, they put that out. They say, do you want us to release a few singles here and there, or do you just want the entire album? The fan base is like, yeah, just give us the whole album, eh? So yeah, Halloween rolls around, and next second, Still Sucks pops out. And while the album artwork is odd, it looks like a Ren and Stimpy, no, it looks like a Mambo artwork. That's what it is. It looks like Mambo, if you've ever heard of that. It's an Australian shirt design. That's what it looks like on the album cover. It's so unusual. But Still Sucks is this amazing comeback record. It's like the band just managed to clear out their headspace, everything that was going wrong and negative. I think like Sam Rivers was having a massive issue some years prior with You know, he was getting like cirrhosis of the liver. He had to quit drinking. He had to, otherwise he was going to die. And obviously he's managed to overcome this. The band hadn't put out a record for, at this stage, 10 years, and pretty much like was on hiatus to a point, or it had split, and it was like one of those things like, Limp Bizkit's never coming back, or at least that's what I thought of. If you said in 2019, Limp Bizkit's going to make a new album 2 years later, I would have laughed at you. I would have genuinely laughed at you and said, yeah, get fucked. Limp Bizkit are not coming back, baby. That was back then. So, yeah, look, this album comes out in 2021, and I think everyone's obviously in their right headspace. I think, Wes is back in the band. He's doing these things that is just great. He's got all his hooks that he's probably been saving up over the years, and just going like, all right, time to let loose. Sam's back in his right mental state, and just going, yep, I've overcome my addictions, and I'm for the better now. And it all comes into play here, of course. John Otto, DJ Lethal doing his bit, and Fred Durst just playing 4D chess with the rest of the world here. He's managing, despite the fact that he's been out of the game essentially at this point for 15 years, at least in the zeitgeist. I mean, if you ask any teenager out there now who Limp Bizkit are, they would have no idea who Limp Bizkit are. This is a band that was like at the forefront of every musician back in like 99, 2000, 2001. We're talking about the band, top of the bill kind of status. Everyone knew Fred Durst. He's wearing the red cap backwards, creating a whole icon, if you will. As much as you're going to hate what I'm going to say, like Jim Morrison, poster boy kind of thing. He really was. And he'd been out of the game for 15 odd years, out of the eye. He was doing TV ads, He was. There was like an ad, and it was like, oh, don't be caught. There was an insurance ad. Someone like hits a car or something, and they're playing Limp Bizkit, like this mum dropping off a kid to school kind of thing. And Fred Durst is the one walking across the crossing, and looking up like, man, I can't believe you're listening to that music. Ha ha ha! Get it? Because it's Limp Bizkit, and they're the butt end of every joke. Shut up. Still sucks, just shows that Fred Durst can still get the public up and roaring for any kind of thing he does, because he pulls out dad vibes, he I mean the song literally, as well as his dress sense. He comes in with that grey wig, the glasses, the moustache, and it works. It bloody well works, I just don't it still blows my mind how after all these years he comes out, reinvents himself, and the media's just going nuts. Like, holy shit, you did it. I don't know how, but this was like a perfect part of whatever happened. I don't know. This is just a slice of a moment in music that was perfect.
Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
So yeah, dad vibes. I think Out of Style, just that riff, that opening section was like, what? How did you do that? And I remember, he played it, and everyone's like, no, seriously, how did you play that? Like, it doesn't even make sense in the video. Dirty Rotten Biscuit is another tune as well. That's kind of like, yeah, that's cool. Dad Vibes it's an odd piece. It's very different as well, but I think it goes well. It perfectly vibes with it. Turning Up Bitch was certainly an intriguing one as well. There was also the track, what was it? I think it was Don't Change, was a cover. Believe In Excess. Yeah, Don't Change was a cover of an In Excess song. Very unusual choice, but I didn't hate it either. Then you go to the other tracks as well, which, just flowing through. They're just awesome songs I wouldn't skip on. Snacky Poo, maybe, but I've got to say that last track, Goodbye, Snacky Poo. Snacky Poo is the one I was trying to think of. Snacky Poo is the one, I believe, the interview with Wes Borland, and it's like, oh yeah, we're from this radio station, blah blah blah. We're here with Wes Borland. Wes Borland, how you feeling? Good. And it is hilarious to listen to. It is so freaking funny. Like, the band is just sitting there going, all right, Wes Borland is a man of little words, and we're gonna make fun of this whole thing. It's great to listen to this banter, and I fucking love it. So it's great to see that the band still have it at this point in their careers. They still have a sense of humour as well, still keeping it up, and I just would love to see what could come out of them in the future. Who knows? But Still Sucks is an amazing comeback album, no denying. Well, everyone knew what the top two were going to be at least. It's just a question of where they were going to be placed. Because by surprise, Significant Other is my number 2 pick. Yep, this is the second album that I ever got by Limp Bizkit. So that might explain my reasoning. But yeah, Significant Other is pretty much the iconic album that Limp Bizkit released. It was just the one that broke them into the scene. You know, their Sophomore album. And of course, the highly and massive successful tune that was Break Stuff. Probably the most famous song ever written. You know, and the one that just everyone knows. It's the gym playlist metal song. It's the meme song. It's Break Stuff. And I remember listening to this. You know, actually, no, before I jump into that, you look at this album artwork, and it perfectly encapsulates the time, the era, if you will. We're talking about 1999, people. And that artwork is just like peak Limp Bizkit, peak new metal, peak, very much so, of that era. You know, talk about that loose jeans kind of look. We've got the red hat guy up there on the first time, so we know what Fred does, of course. But, you know, baggy jeans. The fashion sense, let's face it, the new metal fashion sense was something to laugh at in hindsight, but every fashion sense is something to laugh at in hindsight. So talk about, you know, the baggy jeans, the chain, the wallet chain, big jumper and t-shirt and skate shoes, all that stuff. I mean, that was me back in the day. If I could find photos from like 2004, that would be me in a nutshell. Just baggy jeans, wallet chain, big ES skating shoes, these big white ones. I didn't even know how to skate, but everyone was wearing it. That's how it was. You got a click, you go to it, man. It's just common sense. But yeah, look, I mean, shit, I'm wearing band shirts. That's just me now. It's what I wear. But it's fantastic artwork. It's very colourful, and I think this is perfectly reflective compared to their debut album, $3 Bill Y'all. You know, this $3 Bill Y'all is this kind of black, shadowy figure, hand sketched, rough around the edges, red, white, and black. Pretty much, that's it. This one is much, much more colour, much more vibrant, exploding on the scene. I believe it may have been done by Fred Durst, because he was a tattoo artist when he was back in the day. I'm pretty sure. So I have reason to believe this would have been done by Fred Durst. And of course, you know, it's got that written Limp Bizkit. At least that would have been done by Fred Durst, the way it was written. But yeah, it perfectly captures, perfectly visualizes, I should say, what the band were and what they were about to do. Because yeah, Break Stuff comes in, destroys the scene. Nookie follows up as well. Absolutely huge song, rearranged. These songs are just massive. Like they're just absolutely synonymous to the scene, to Limp Bizkit, to nu metal in general. You know, there is just this absolutely incredible set of tracks here. But I think this is the reasoning for it being number 2 for me. The first half of the album, flawless. Absolutely flawless. Okay, just like this. Nookie, Break Stuff, rearranged, I'm Broke, Nobody Like You, Don't Go Off Wondering, to a degree, maybe 1999. I mean, I like 1999. Then when you get to End Together Now, that's where it kind of skips a beat to me. You know, we're talking about mixing it up a little bit, changing it, and it just trails off. Pretty much after I'm Broke, actually, I should say. That's where it starts to kind of go on a decline, and it never really recovers. So, yeah, like, you have this massive highs from the album. I'll listen to the first half. Absolutely, I will. But when it gets to the second half, I don't really care for it. So, it's unfortunate. But that is my logic, I guess. That coupled with the fact that that was the second album that I got by the band. So, of course, the number one pick is the one I listen to on much more high rotation. Significant Other, very close second. And of course, we have the very, very funny little outro piece that was done that was absolutely notorious for its absolute rant at the end of the day, which, you know, it's certainly one of those things. It exists off the album, and I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get it off screen here because I'm pulling an absolute blank as to the guy's name that was at the very end there. you know, and it was where are we? Matt Pinfield. That was him. His rant at the very end of that is so freaking funny. You know, Limp Bizkit, man, you gotta listen to Limp Bizkit, you know, and he's just unhinged, unfiltered, untapped. It's just, yeah. So, yes, Significant Other, second spot. I bet a lot of people would make this the number one position. I couldn't blame you if you did. It is a great record. You know, I mean, hell, number two is an amazing pick. But it's just not my number one. And of course, that leaves the number one spot being for chocolate starfish and the hot dog flavored water. Yeah, let's call this out quickly because yeah, there's what is it? Comic Sans? No, it's not Comic Sans. It is a terrible album cover. All right, yeah, I'm gonna admit that. But hell, little, what is it? 12-year-old me didn't care at the stage. I thought it was the funniest thing I ever seen. What is this alien-like monsters sitting there and a bunch of hot dogs? I didn't get the joke. Didn't get the joke for a little while. And then it all made sense. But damn, does this album just go off. This album right here is one of the biggest nostalgia chubs I'll ever have in my life. Like, this takes me back so hard to what was my youth. This is the album I probably have listened to the most in my younger times. And it's for a very good fucking reason. There is a lot of tracks here that just go off. I know I know people will say it's flawed, this might be the beginning of the end for Limp Bizkit, but I beg to differ. I think this is the peak of Limp Bizkit right here. There is a lot of facts on undo. Of course, we can't forget hot dog, and if I say fuck 2 more times, it's 46 fucks and it's fucked up rhyme. You know, when you're 12 years old, all you want to do is swear. Being Australian, that's all we fucking do. What can I say about that? But you know, when you're 12, you don't swear. So yeah, it was just like listening to this in my Walkman, like, oh, I'm rebellious. Yeah, of course it's funny in hindsight. My Generation, banger. Wow, what a tune there. Absolutely incredible. Full Nelson, once again, another incredible song. But then when you get up to My Way, and it's just this incredible journey, if you will. Maybe not journey. This shows how Fred Durst is able to adapt and come into play and use all his abilities at any one time. Because My Way, you know, we're talking Frank Sinatra, you know, he's talking about using his ability to blend cultures into music. My Way, you know, we're talking about Frank Sinatra, one of the big boys when it comes to music. And I love the way he blends his lyrics into this and adapts it for a newer era, his era, our era, you know, and the youth that was. And we did it my way or the highway. Again, all this is pretty much exactly of the lyrics of Frank Sinatra. So, you know, it's interesting. And he plays into this in the video clip as well. You know, when you watch the video clip back, you can see him and he's all dressed up in that blue suit and he's got the big band. That's a play, again, at him. So I think it's cool. He's providing a nod to, you know, these previous musicians. Clearly he has been influenced by them. But he's adapting the culture of then to now. And I think this is what people don't get enough credit to him about. He has this fantastic ability to adapt and impress these types of things into his music. So it certainly is intriguing. And, you know, I wouldn't learn about this until many years later. But yeah, My Way, absolutely huge track, a banger of a track, if you will. But of course, we can't forget Rollin'. And man, that song that blew up, didn't it? I remember sitting down and watching, you know, the music video channels, waiting for Rollin' to come on, and just doing the whole, you know, it's rollin', 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 rollin'. Break Stuff is the song that everyone knows by Limp Bizkit. Break Stuff is the most popular song by Limp Bizkit as well. But I will say this about it. Rollin' is the song that if you want to play it to a bunch of 40 or 30-year-olds on a boat, then everyone's going to get up and do Rollin'. Break Stuff, you're going to have a different kind of events. You know, so yeah, if you hear Break Stuff, you're going to smash shit around. If you're at a party and you hear Rollin', you're going to have a bunch of 30 and 40-year-olds who grew up listening to Limp Bizkit doing the whole rollin', 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 rollin'. You know, it's funny. It's funny as hell. Tacky, very, very much so. But shit, that's whatever. You know, that's Limp Bizkit. The fact that a guy in a red cap can sit there and make a very basic gesture like this, and it becomes a thing. Hats off, man. It's just kudos to you. And in a very interesting piece of trivia as well that surrounds the rolling video clip, that was the last video to be filmed, well, music video, I should say, on the World Trade Center. And it's, yeah, I know, very, well, we better tiptoe around this subject, right? Yeah, so this was the last music video to be shot on the World Trade Center. The World Trade Center would unfortunately be, this is what, just before September. You know, we're talking the month before, I think. So after the video clip was made, distributed, gained fame, there's then a letter that is sent out to Fred Durst, and I'm not gonna do this justice. Obviously, Fred Durst, when you hear him talking about it, he does a much better job than I'm going to. But basically, he said it felt really odd to get this letter from, you know, the World Trade Center staff saying thank you very much for using our facilities to film your video. We appreciate it very much. And he said it was very odd receiving this letter because he received it after the 9/11 attacks. So his first thought was, I'm reading a letter that was written by someone who is more than likely dead, you know, and due to such circumstances. So, bit of a dampener on there, but bit of trivia for you if you didn't know that before. Now you do. But yeah, like rolling, I don't know, how are we going to recover from this part, eh? We are going to, I guess. So I just want to take a moment as well to say another piece of trivia that surrounds this album is Take a Look Around, which is another well-known song by Limp Bizkit, and of course was the song that was used in the Mission Impossible 2 soundtrack. If you didn't know, now you know. So these are certainly more of the most famous tracks that are off this album, and I guess the ones that are more well-known, especially going over the counts here. But I want to give a special shout out to two tracks that is probably not as known as many other ones. It'll Be Okay and Boiler, in particular Boiler. These two tracks very much not underwhelmed, sorry. They're very underappreciated and overlooked over the catalogue. And I think anyone who's a massive Limp Bizkit fan is going to agree with me here that these two songs in particular are just incredible. You know, it's a different layer. It's very unusual, actually, to hear, in particular, Boiler, because Fred Durst takes it to this level that we didn't really think that he could ever do. And it's almost an area of pain in his voice. You know, he's got that scream going on and this weird guitar intro that sounds so alien. And for me, I'll always associate this to when I'm driving in the middle of the country, you know, I'm talking Australia, and I'm highway driving, talking long grass in the fields, red dirt to the side of me, that type of shit. And I've always got to listen to Boiler when I'm driving that drive because it was a track that I listened to when I was going out to visit some family who lived in that direction. And it tied me emotionally to a moment in particular during that time. So it's an emotionally charged song for me that brings back a different time, as well as the whole album. The whole album does this, but then this one song also does this, as well as, again, you know, Take a Look Around, which is just another song which just tied me back to another movie that I enjoyed in my youth. Mission Impossible 2 was, you know, this movie I watched like 40 times. I thought it was like the peak action movie that anyone could ever make. It was just perfect. So for me, yeah, chocolate starfish and the hot dog flavoured water, while many would consider to be somewhat flawed or not as good as Significant Other, I feel it is just much better. I think overall, there's, you know, while it doesn't have Nookie or it doesn't have break stuff, it does have My Way, it does have Rollin', it does have My Generation, it does have Full Nelson. It has all these songs here that it's like, okay, shit, we got something going on. It's a good album. Don't think there's anyone denying that, unless you're just a Limp Bizkit hater, in which case, get the fuck out of here. But anyway, you know, it's just a really good album, and it's just peak new metal. I'd say if you're gonna rank like top 10 new metal albums, this would be 2 or 3 or maybe 1. So yeah, that's my number 1 pick. And that concludes my list for Limp Bizkit, ranked from worst to best. And just to throw in a little bit of a mix here, I just wanted to see how my list compares to, say, Rachel Music, which of course is a score of all these people just ranking, of course. Well, not ranking, but scoring, of course, all the Limp Bizkit albums, and, you know, it puts an average score on them. So I'd be very curious to see, I guess, where my list stacks up against the average of every other person who has voted. So I just wanted to go through that quickly. Here we go. The worst album on the list is New Old Songs. Perhaps no surprise there. It's sitting at 1.38 from 1,000 scores. Holy moly, that is really low. That puts mine way out of banging there. Results May Vary was the second worst album. Again, I'm not surprised, but nostalgia wins. Sorry, people. Results May Vary is the second worst album there. Golden Cobra comes up on the third worst. So that's my difference there. The next one to come up. Okay, I'm surprised about this one. Chocolate Starfish and the hot dog flavored water. Very interesting to see this, I guess, so low in the mix. I don't know what to say about that. The next one to come up is the Unquestionable Truth. And wow, I'm a little bit set back by that one there. Still Sucks is third, and I think that I had that down as third, didn't I? Yeah. So, hey, I got one out of this one here, and yeah, look, not surprising. Still Sucks is an amazing album. Significant Other came second on Rachel Music. How about that? That is surprising to hear, to be honest. And obviously that's my second pick as well, so another one there. But I thought this would top out the list. What did surprise me is $3 Bill Y'all coming in at the number one spot, also equal scoring at 2.83 for both of those ones there. So, hey, a little bit of a fun fact there. Anyway, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like it, share your list below, and as always, stay spicy out there. If you've enjoyed this content, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to us, and stay notified for future music related content, because it keeps our manager happy at the end of the day. We are also on Discord, Instagram, Facebook, and all those other social platforms if you want to check us out. As always, people, you have a great day and stay spicy.